Alright, kids, that bell means that episode 4 of the feature-length podcast is now in session. Now, what is the feature-length podcast? Anyone? Anyone? You with your hand raised.
The feature-length podcast is a show where 3 idiots talk about film and entertainment.
Good answer! Now, who hosts the feature-length podcast? The other guy with his hand up?
The 3 of us. I'm Marco.
I'm Daniel.
And I'm Karolina. Great job, guys. Now, a kind of tough question. I think there's only one person in the whole class who can answer this one. What is today's star date? Marco?
I'm going to take this one. Today's star date, I think, is negative 302.306.6.
Perfect. Now, the most important question of all. What on earth are we talking about today? Dan?
I'm pretty sure we're talking about School of Rock, starring Jack Black.
Perfect. Yes, today we're talking about the 2003 film School of Rock, the perfect film for the back-to-school season we're in right now, and the reason we had this incredibly lame intro. I'm allowed to say that because it was my idea. But anyways, School of Rock is about a guy named Dewey Finn, who, after being kicked out of his own rock band, steals his roommate's job and essentially identity to become a substitute teacher of an uptight elementary private school. And obviously, having no qualifications and no interest in being a teacher, just in making money, he gets the idea to try to turn his class into a rock band and compete in the Battle of the Bands. And then obviously just antics and eventually chaos ensues. So, yeah. I mean, this time all of us had seen it before, so we're kind of deviating from the usual structure. So I was thinking maybe we could go around and say, like, what we remember about the first time we watched it, or how we were introduced to it, or, like, what we originally thought about it, / how our thoughts might have changed upon a rewatch, just vaguely.
I guess I'll go first. Do I have to raise my hand?
Yes.
No, we're done with
that.
that.
You gotta raise your hand.
We are done with that.
We're done with that skit.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think the first time I watched this movie was in, like, grade 7. It was, like, shown at school, and it was just something that was shown to me, and I liked it a lot. But I'm pretty sure I actually don't think I might have seen it once between then and now, maybe not at all. And all I remembered before I rewatched last night was, like, Jack Black teaching a bunch of kids, and, like, he's not supposed to be there, and then there's, like, a parent-teacher night scene, and then there's the final, like, competition that I thought they won, and I guess.
Well, they did win, Dan. They won what mattered, you know?
Yeah, that's true.
Encore?
Yeah.
They earned the encore. That's all I remembered about the movie. Just, like, these really distinct moments, I guess. But I remember it being really good and funny, and I maintain that after rewatching. I think this is a really, really solid movie. It was genuinely funny, even now. And it was, I enjoyed rewatching it so much.
I first saw this movie, I want to say, probably right around the time it came out. I might have even seen it in theaters the first time. And then, like Dan, obviously, like, every year in school, they showed it to us for some reason. I don't know why, because it's ultimately about, like, a really bad teacher, so that's kind of an odd choice. But yeah, so I saw it then. I watched it a bunch in school. I own it on DVD since, like, 2004. I've owned it on DVD, and I watched it a bunch. Growing up, this was, like, the go-to comedy in my house. I easily watched this at least, like, once or twice a year, like, at home, let alone plus all the times at school. I'd also just like to point out this music, the music in this movie is, like, the biggest influence on my taste in music. If anyone, like, who knows me, like, it's just this, like, it's just this movie. Which, like, it probably isn't something to be proud of, but whatever. It is what it is.
Do you mean the soundtrack to this movie, or, like, the influences mentioned?
Both. Like,
all of it?
Both the soundtrack itself, which I owned and, like, listened to a bunch of music from, And also, yeah, like a lot of the call outs to specific bands or whatever.
I really appreciated that too, yeah.
Yeah, it's fun. And then I think like probably around high school, I watched it like one more time. I don't think I ever watched it when I was in university, funny enough. So that's like a 4-year span. I mean, now like 5 years where I hadn't seen it. And it's just one of those movies that every time I go back to, I expect that time to be the time where I'm like, oh, this isn't going to work anymore. But like watching it again yesterday, it's legitimately just as good as it was like the first time I saw it. And I actually probably like it even more like as an adult who can like appreciate some of the filmmaking stuff. And like we'll get into some of that
even,
after,
like,
but yeah.
Some of the music references I feel like I appreciate much more today.
Yeah, for sure. But it's Carol?
Yeah. I definitely didn't get any of the music references as a kid. Weirdly enough, I think I was gifted the School of Rock DVD. For some reason, my brain is convinced it was for my communion in the 2nd grade. I don't know why, but I think, yeah, family friends gave that to me as a gift, and I hadn't actually seen it until they gave it to me as a gift. But yeah, then I was obsessed with it and probably also watched it like once a year at home. Oddly enough, never watched it at school, but I think like maybe because we were always in a Catholic school, so they probably didn't want us like revolting against the man, although...
But like, I watched it all the time in a Catholic school too.
Yeah, I was in a Catholic school too.
I guess my teachers were just kind of like, whatever.
I will mention though, Marco, you said you watched it all the time. It was literally only once. Like,
dude, I'm telling you, like at the end of every school year, it was like hey, it's the end of the year, let's watch a movie.
Like a
Yes.
Every teacher just loved it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they did, like, take a lot of very obvious steps to make it PG-13, which we can talk about later. So it was appropriate, technically.
Sure, yeah.
But, yeah, no, I love the movie. I still find it hilarious. I think I've always loved Jack Black, but I think this was probably the first role I saw him in as a kid that I, like, then was like, oh, I like this guy, he's funny, and obviously now I've seen a bunch of different movies he's been in, but I think this might have been my introduction to him, and so it really got me on that Jack Black train.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of Jack Black, like, I just want to put this out there. People talk about, like, iconic performances, but, like, Jack Black in this movie is as iconic to me as, like, RDJ as Iron Man, or, like, Heath Ledger as the Joker. Like, I can't, like, when I watch him in this movie, I'm like,
superhero level.
This is the role you were born to play. Like, no one else could have, if literally anyone else was Dewey Finn in this movie, I don't think it works as well as it ends up working.
Well, he's literally playing himself.
I know.
Like, he's a huge music fanatic, so he's perfect, yeah.
Even like
I'm surprised he didn't, like, write the movie.
I know.
Yeah. Even, like, the song that Dewey wrote, like, sounded like a Tenacious D song. So you know that this was, like, his dream role. And, like, he was obviously having fun with it. Even though he was working with a bunch of kids who I'm sure did not understand his humor at the time.
I'm sure. Oh, okay, just speaking of the kids, I have a point I want to say about the kids. And then I thought something that might be a nice little fun framework to start off with would just be, like, if we just talked about, like, some of the stuff that makes us laugh the hardest in the movie. Because, like, I don't know how else to really talk about this movie without being like, oh, remember that scene?
Yeah.
So, but speaking of the kids, like, since we're talking about performance, something I really wanted to point out is, like, how great of a job they did casting this movie. Because when you look at other movies that star children, like, I don't know, Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, it's like one child actor in that movie. Random. One child actor in that movie completely fucks that movie. And it's not that it's a good movie to begin with, but it's just, like, sucks the energy out of everything. And the fact that, like, every child actor in this movie isn't, like, just decent, but is also believable as a child actor, as, like, a child at this school, and, like, you instantly feel like they actually all were classmates, even though, like, none of them were, and also, like, they are genuinely talented, and it's just, like, a feat of casting that's, like, so underappreciated. Like, the majority of the cast in this movie are, like, 10 to 12-year-old children, and they're all great.
Yeah, it's the casting, but also the direction, because, like, clearly Richard Linklater, who I didn't realize directed this movie until last night. He's clearly really good at directing, like, young actors.
Yeah.
So.
Well, but,
So that's my... Go on, Carol.
yeah, I was just going to say that makes sense because in almost all of the cases, it was the children's, like, first and often only acting role. So I think that almost, like, helps. Like, yeah, sure, maybe a seasoned child actor, if you want them for, like, a dramatic role, might be best. But, like, because their role was essentially to be a kid in school, it was almost a pro to just get a kid out of school to film this, and then they, like, most of them just went back to being kids.
Yeah.
Yep.
Method acting.
Yeah.
The obvious exception to that being Miranda
yeah.
Cosgrove. But also,
Right.
like, I feel like you kind of had to have a legit child actor in that role.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just... It's not... It would be hard to do that and to actually be that kid and not be really annoying to the point of, like, I don't like when they're on screen. So I feel like you kind of need an actual child actor to bring, like, some sense of, like... I don't know, complexity is not the right word, but just, like, hit the performance, like, right on the perfect amount of annoying where it's not bothersome, but, like, you get it at the same time.
But until then,
Was this
she was...
not her?
Yeah, she was only had a small role in Smallville. I did research before this.
Yo, she was in Smallville?
Like, she was probably an extra or something. It just said
Are you
this
fucking
was her
kidding me?
second role after a small part in Smallville.
Marco
That's a
loves this
direct
movie
quote.
even more now.
Guys, I gotta rewatch Smallville now.
Look for Miranda
You have to
Cosgrove.
rewatch all of Smallville
I have to-
just to,
Yeah, I gotta rewatch
for
all
this
of it.
one role.
And even if she's in season 1, I'm just gonna keep watching. I don't care.
Of course,
Marco,
you
if you
like
want to
Smallville.
rewatch Smallville, just do it.
I probably should. Okay. So in terms of, like, funny stuff, one of the funniest things in this movie happens immediately. Like, it happens, it's, like, one of the first thing that happens, which is you're, like, backstage at this concert venue, this very small, crappy bar concert venue, right? And there's just this, like, really shitty early 2000s, like, new metal / punk song. And I think my favorite thing is that the first 2 credits you see are for Scott Rudin, who is, like, this super famous producer. This guy's produced, like, most of Aaron Sorkin's work, like, Oscar caliber producer. And then Richard Linklater, again, like, Oscar caliber director. And it's, like, it's these 2 guys' credits, and it's just this ridiculous song, and it's such, like, a perfect amalgamation of what this movie is, which is, like, so much more talented and better made than it has any right to be. Like, it's so genuinely good for no fucking reason, but it's great. Like, it makes it what it is.
Also, I just want to note it took a little over 10 minutes for Marco to mention Aaron Sorkin, in case anyone
This is the
was
only
playing
one.
a bingo or a drinking game.
This is the only one, and you know what's funny is, like, as soon as that credit came up in the movie of, like, Scott Rudin, I was like, oh, cool, this is gonna be a funny thing for me to bring up, and then I was like, fuck, I'm gonna have to talk about Aaron Sorkin again. Jesus Christ.
But yeah, I agree. Like, even the intro, the way that they showed everything, like, they had Jack Black as, like, a poster. It was nice to get away from the stereotypical just, like, listing the names on the bottom or whatever people do. I like that it was creative in that way. I don't know if it was ahead of its time, because I can't tell you how often I pay attention to credits at the beginning of the movie, but it was nice that at least it wasn't just, like, words on the bottom of a screen, and, like, you might not even have noticed if you weren't paying attention, because it's just, like, a poster on a wall or whatever else they did.
Right.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of, like, the intro to Baby Driver,
Yeah.
where, like, the credits are, like, in the environment too, and it's like a walking continuous scene. I feel like, I don't know, there was probably some sort of influence there, given, like, the similarities between the 2 movies, I guess. But I don't know if you guys have seen Baby Driver.
I have, but what are the other similarities between the 2 movies?
Well, they're definitely both, like, heavily influenced by music. And, like, I feel like both, the direction in both is the same. Like, obviously the plot is totally different,
Yeah.
but, like, the attitude of both is quite similar.
Interesting. That's an interesting take. I haven't seen Baby Driver, so I can't comment on this.
Really? I'm surprised.
I know. It's on my list of things that Dan's recommended that I need to get to at some point. Cause,
No one else
yeah.
has recommended that movie to you?
No, I mean, of course. Like, everyone loves it. But specifically, like, there are things that Dan has said, like, you need to watch this. And I'm like, okay, I gotta make sure to watch this one day.
You watched all
One
of
of them was
Twilight
Mother.
before that?
Oh yeah, true. One of them was Mother. That's a good point, Dan.
You can check that off your list.
Why
Oh my
did you
God.
tell him to watch Mother?
Because did you not see my reaction last week? That's why he told me to watch Mother.
Carolina, that was the reaction I was trying to elicit for the past 3 years out of this guy.
And now you
But
got
I'm glad we waited because
Yeah.
because now it's recorded forever.
You can enjoy it for the rest of your life.
To anyone who's not following, if you haven't seen our previous episode, definitely go check it out.
It's a fun one.
Yeah, it was very fun to record. We talked about Mother. But anyway, I think one of my favorite like funny things about this movie was how much okay, so we should mention Dewey Finn when he pretends to be a teacher, he's kind of like he's pretending to be his roommate Ned Schneebly,
What a name.
which is just it's an amazing name by the way.
Mm-hmm.
But I think one of my favorite things about this movie is the real Ned, like his performance, because he's just such like he's such a cuck.
Yeah, he is. He is.
It's played so well, like the actor Mike White, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Who also did he write the movie? I feel like he did something major.
Yeah,
he
was
might have written some of the
involved.
music or something.
He was involved with production somehow. You're right. I don't remember if he was one of the writers.
he was a
on
big
it.
creative influence or something. But yeah, he was. His performance was very good. Probably one of my favorite aspects, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of rewarding seeing him at the final concert at the end,
Yeah.
which we'll talk more about.
Yeah, I'm
But-
sure. Funnily enough, the people I was watching it with were convinced, like they were willing to jokingly bet $3,000 that Mike White plays what's the dude in The Office that everyone hates? Toby. They were convinced that Mike White played
What?
Toby. I mean, obviously, I knew that he didn't, but I was like fighting them for the first 5 minutes of the film until I like pulled it up on Google. But
They're
He
kind,
looks like
they both have
he's like
similar
an
cuck
alternate
energy.
reality.
Yeah, so that's
yeah, they're
probably
kind of
why.
the same character. Yeah, that's an interesting pull. Yeah, they're basically the same person, so
Yeah.
I guess that makes sense.
They get the energy, but
I think some of my favorite stuff in this is just all the really weird like Jack Black isms of just like mispronouncing shit, and it's just so funny. Like when he's talking to the teachers the first time he meets them, and they're like, "Oh, Mr. Schneebly, did I say that right? Schneebly?" And he goes, "Actually, it's Schneeblay." And I don't know why, but that line fucking kills me every time because he just never corrects it. He just leaves it there, and then the movie just goes on from that. There's other like, I'd say like my most quoted line from this movie, and it's such a random line, but my sister and I say to each other at least like once a day. Like I'm not even joking. It's like our quoted line from this movie is after he finds out that all these kids are musically talented and he brings them back to class and he's like showing them different like rock instruments, and he gets the girl that was playing like the
cello.
cello.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know exactly
And
what you're
he-
gonna say.
Yeah, and he goes, he's like, "This is a bass guitar. Have you ever played a bass guitar?" And she's like, "No." And he's like, "Okay, it's kind of like a cello, but you turn it on the side and then cello, you got a bass." And like, I don't know what it is about that line. It's so stupid and it doesn't make any sense. It's such like a stupid line, and it's one of like my funniest. Like I cannot watch that movie and not laugh really hard at that moment. Like it's so perfect.
I see what you're saying though, because like I'm assuming it wasn't improv, which it could have been by Jack Black, but assuming it wasn't, like seeing that written on a script would probably appear very lame
Yes.
by just any other actor. But it's one of those things where it's like you have to know that Jack Black is going to be delivering the line for it to sell.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Like, so I remember because there was like behind the scenes on the DVD for this, and I used to watch it all the time as a kid. I didn't rewatch it for this because I just didn't have time.
Yeah,
but
I literally have the DVD. I should have. I can't believe I didn't do it.
I know. So going off of that, there is a lot of stuff in this that was super like last minute. We'll figure it out as we go.
Yeah.
Like, you know that song. Like, when the kids are like, what song are we gonna perform? And he's like, yeah, I got a song. And they're like, okay, then fucking sing it. And he clearly doesn't have a song, and he needs to just come up with one on the spot. And it's all about, like, which is like the funniest song in the whole movie. That song is hysterical.
The one about his friends like kicking him out of his own band
because he didn't pay the rent. Yeah, like all that. And like the whole premise of that was like they just needed to write a song in a minute, and like in the script they didn't have the song written, and it was just like one day as they were approaching the shoot or whatever, Jack Black and like the director, like Richard Linklater, and I guess some of the producers just sat down and like just fucking came up with a song out of nowhere, and that was just the song that was in it.
Yeah, I kind of got that from the performance.
Yeah,
which is the point.
It's legitimately what it is, but it's so funny to me that like a lot of the times when you see movies that are like really improv or really last second, like I know Judd Apatow is kind of like the king of that. Like he kind of really ushered in that era or whatever. And a lot of those movies are like funny, but then there's also stuff that's really not funny, and also sometimes they go on too long and like the plot gets muddled a little bit. And what's so funny to me is that this movie is like at the script level is so good, and like literally every character has an arc in this movie, like a really satisfying arc, and it's one of the most like endearing movies ever, but also somehow it's like all the jokes are completely like not scripted, and it's such a weird thing of like the story scripted but all the jokes are coming pretty much from Jack Black and the director like on the day or whatever, and like that never happens. That's such a rare thing, but it's great.
I think that's what makes this movie so like rewatchable and something that has been able to like last so long, because it's a culmination of almost like so many little jokes that maybe you didn't even notice, and you can like always find something new on every rewatch. Like the last time I watched it, I loved the fact that like on his first day he just couldn't spell his apparently best friend's last name.
I know.
Just like little details like that. Or when I think it's also when he was talking to the teachers for the first time in the lunchroom, he was quoting, I think, like, "We are the world" to them, and no one somehow noticed. Just like small things like that every time you pick up on it, and like because they're such small jokes you forget, so you're almost able to like rediscover them every time. And it's just like that's the genius of this movie. Like, yeah, obviously it was made in 2003, there's some offensive jokes, probably like too much harping on the gay kid, whatever, but in general like they tackle like fat phobia and like body confidence, and like every kid, typically when there's like kids in movies, they like are just background characters and you don't really care about them, but we were able to like see all of them grow in confidence. And yeah, no, it was awesome.
Yeah, that was nice.
Yeah,
there was a couple like you're saying, like really interesting things, and like to what you're saying, on top of the humor being surprising, not surprising, but like it's so dense that like you can keep going back to it. Don't laugh, Dan. I know what you're thinking of, and I wasn't trying to reference. Anyway,
bullshit.
It's so dense. There's so much going on in every frame. Anyway,
second Phantom Menace reference, by the way, of the episode.
On top of that, though, like the story is just really engaging. Like every time I watch this, I'm like, yeah, it's gonna be funny, but I'm also like really engaged in the story the whole time. And like to what you're saying, Carol, like I feel like everything is handled really well, and there's a lot of really interesting storytelling stuff that I don't think they would do today. Like, for example, what I was, as an adult, like, this is my first time really watching this movie as an adult, as having had friends that have moved out, like yourself, Carol, and had roommates and stuff like that. Like, at the start of this movie, when, like, Ned's girlfriend is like, why are you not, like, this guy has to pay his rent and get a job or leave. And it's like, yeah, like, he's an asshole. Like, if this was, like, a modern movie, after that first scene with Ned, he would have, like, you know, called his mom, and his mom would have been, like, sick with cancer or something. You know what I mean? They would have instantly tried to make you like him. But this movie, for the first, like, 15 minutes, leans into the fact that, like, no, this guy is an asshole. Like, straight up. He is an asshole. So by the end of the movie, when you're totally on his side, it feels like an actual transformation. It's like it's an actual story, like, and it's something that just wouldn't be done. And even like for the time period in a comedy, that's not something that you see a lot. But the other thing that really shocked me about, again, like what you're saying, Karolina, is pretty much all the kids' arcs in this movie, and even like to some degree Jack's Black arc, all have to do with them like accepting the best part of themselves, which is, it's like something you don't pick up on. Like as a kid, it's just like, yeah, it's a dumb movie. But as an adult watching it, I was like, oh, like this is actually a very like positive movie about like not accepting the best parts of yourself and like really putting that forward. All this stuff that like if you watch a kids movie now, the idea of having like actual story arcs this complex, like weaved in with the comedic stuff, unless you're watching like a fucking Pixar movie, because they're the only ones that seem to care anymore. Like it just doesn't happen. Like it just doesn't happen. This type of movie literally could not get made now. No one would make this movie now.
Was this marketed to kids or adults? Because I guess we were too young to remember the marketing. But I guess since it was so PG-13, maybe to kids. But
I think it was to kids. But that's the crazy thing is like it functions as both.
Yeah.
And not in a way.
I feel like it was marketed to everyone.
Yeah.
Yes. But not in a way where it compromises. Like again, to go back to like Pixar with, let's say, like Inside Out or something.
Yeah.
Like that movie never compromises either being a kids movie or being applicable to adults. Like it is what it is in like the best possible way, and because of that, like everyone can get something from it. And I feel like School of Rock kind of functions in the same way. And yeah, it's really interesting. And the only other thing that you pointed out was like there is the kids. There's the gay kid. Okay, we should just let's get this out of the way. I have to say,
Fancy
overall, Fancy Pants, overall, I was pleasantly surprised with how little overtly offensive stuff happened with him in the movie. Like, especially for a movie of that time, like, none of his, like, school friends say anything about it. Like, the most we ever really get is Jack Black calling him Fancy Pants, and also, like, I mean, that I'm trying to think of something that's, like, really more overt than Jack Black, but, like, the fact that it's not as bad for a movie of that time period, I was like, okay, cool. Like, it's not handled. It's probably the one thing in this movie that's not handled like at an A+ level, but it's by no means like, fuck, like I can't watch this movie anymore because this is really fucked up what's happening.
Yeah, it's like how in episode 1 we were talking about representation in the Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Yeah.
Like there's absolutely nothing explicitly racist or like anything like that in Lord of the Rings, but because there's a lack of like minority representation and female representation in like strong roles, it's kind of like that, like where there's really nothing explicitly offensive happening in this movie in regard to that, and at all in terms of anything else. It's just something that, I mean, looking back on it now, it could have been, it could have been handled a little better, but it might have even been like progressive for the time period, I feel like.
Like other than him being like the fashion designer, like the fact that like no one made fun of him or like mentioned
that was
like
nice,
his voice or how like maybe flamboyant he was. Like it was refreshing that it wasn't like constantly brought up or like he wasn't singled out for it. So at least there was that.
Exactly. And also like to the whole idea of like this movie being everyone like embracing the best part of themselves. Like Fancy Pants as a character, his name's Billy, right?
Yeah, I think so. I have it in my research, but yeah.
Billy kind of has like the shortest arc in the movie, but it is the theme of the movie, which is Jack Black gives him a role being a part of security or whatever.
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't want to do that. I want to be the costume designer. And Jack Black's just like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. Go ahead, be the costume. And it's like,
and I like how he chose to be the costume designer. It wasn't like he was assigned that role.
Yes.
That was great.
That was surprising for an early 2000s movie.
And it was nice, again, like, even to have within that scene, like, Jack Black not make it, like, it wasn't a joke. Like, it wasn't Jack Black being like, there was no joke about him wanting to be the fashion designer. It was just a very sincere scene of Jack Black being like, yeah, sure, of course you can. Go ahead. Like, so all things considered, handled pretty well.
And his little storyline actually, like, I felt had a really good payoff too, because I don't know about you guys, but I just love that, like, in the final Battle of the Bands scene, when Jack Black finally, like, puts on his part of the uniform, which is just like a larger version of the school uniform. I don't know, it felt really rewarding.
Yeah, it's awesome.
That whole final scene was, like, awesome.
Yeah. Before we
Yeah,
get to
but,
that, to circle back to something that Marco mentioned earlier, when you were talking about how the girlfriend was like, why are you living here for free? Like, you're just sleeping on his floor. What are you doing? Like, funnily enough, like, as a kid, I think most kids were like, because Jack Black's the main protagonist and you're supposed to like him, you're like, oh yeah, this, like, she's a bitch. Like, how could she ask him to move out? But, like, I think it was the first time that I rewatched it as an adult where I was like, no, she's 100% right.
Yeah.
Like, I can't imagine, like, even my closest friend's house, I can't imagine sleeping on her floor rent-free for more than, like, a week. You know what I mean? So, like, she's super, I mean, maybe her, like, calling the cops on him for stealing the job was a little bit pushing it. I mean, yeah, I guess he was teaching kids without a teaching license, which was pretty bad. But I feel like she just could have gone to the school herself to talk about it. So, like, she wasn't perfect. But, like, she was the most rational and, like, of the modern world character in the whole movie. Also, Sarah Silverman, so good. I can't believe, like, what a role for her.
I forgot she was in this movie.
Yeah.
Like, with what we were saying before about how Jack Black, his character, like, Dewey, he starts as, like, not very likable, and then he becomes very likable. I always get a kick out of when someone, like, a character's arc starts in the negative and then goes to the positive, because it's, like, more, it feels like it's harder to do and it achieves more, rather than, like, a character starting at 0 and, like, going up from there. There's more ground to cover, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So by the end of the movie, it feels like more of an achievement.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Like, the thing for me that, like, as I was watching it this time that I kept kind of thinking was, this is, like, one of the most, like, sincere and just, like, endearing movies ever, where it, to what you're saying, Dan, like, it's kind of the Superman problem sometimes, I think, where when you try to make a movie that's really sincere and endearing, sometimes it can come across as, like, super, like, cheesy and cliche and, like, gross, why am I watching this, whatever, like, life sucks. Like, we should watch a movie about how life sucks. But, like, this one really pulls it off in a way where it somehow never feels sincere or endearing, but also, like, that's exactly what it is the entire time. And then, like, by the end, you get that emotion out of it, but it's just done really well in such a clever way. And yeah, like, I can't remember the last time I saw a movie where at the start of the movie, especially a movie, like, not a drama, but, like, a comedy, a kind of lower budget movie or whatever, where the protagonist starts off as literally the worst. Like, he's the villain of the movie in, like, the first 2 scenes, and then, like, by the time you get to the end of the movie, yeah, it's totally, like, arc complete. It's awesome.
Yeah, and you said, like, not including dramas, because with a drama, or I should say with a non-drama, it's like there's less expectation for, like, character-driven stuff.
Yeah.
But that is exactly what we get in this movie. That's the best part of this movie, is all the character stuff.
Yep.
And not just Jack Black. I mean, the whole cast, basically. We haven't even talked about Joan Cusack.
I was literally
yet.
just
Oh
about to
God.
say
Oh
that.
my God.
I was waiting for an opportunity. So good.
Go ahead.
Her character was fantastic. I think, like, the most vivid scene, obviously, is when they're in the bar and she's dancing to Edge of 17, which is fantastic. But yeah, I think especially when I first watched her, obviously I didn't know who she was, and, like, I didn't know just, like, how iconic she had been and, like, continued to be. So seeing it now and, like, realizing, like, what a star she really is, and being like, what a catch for this film, like, even just, like, what a big name to get for this, like, silly little comedy. But what a performance, and her character was so strict and sad, and she played it so well. Like, the fact that no one asked her to hang out in 6 years, so heartbreaking.
Yeah, it was very fulfilling to see her transformation by the end of the movie, too.
Yeah.
Probably, like, one of the most, in my opinion, one of the most fulfilling.
And then also leads into another one of my spotlights for just a really funny scene, which is where she's talking to the band member from No Vacancy, and who's got, like, this shirt, the cutoff shirt. Oh my God, dude, that scene is like, it's like the birth of, like, awkward comedy. Like, it's so uncomfortable and it's so funny at the same time. Like it's the weirdest thing I've ever seen, but it's like, it's amazing. But yeah, she's great in this, and she also, yeah, like we said, gets a great arc in this. She has a lot of opportunities to be funny as well. It's really like we talk about, like, Jack Black obviously being so larger than life, and like this movie is just him and like his personality, but it's like so many other people get opportunities to do really fucking funny stuff in this movie, and she's one of them. Like, she's genuinely hilarious in this movie. Like, one of her, not her introduction, I guess, because her introduction is when she's like walking Jack Black through the hall. I mean, that's funny, but like I'm thinking about her talking to the little girl and like reprimanding, and like that's one of the funniest things I've ever seen. And like she's so good in that scene as like being strict, but you can tell that like she feels bad that she is this person, and it's so good.
I was just gonna say, it's more than like her feeling bad about it too, like about reprimanding the kid. It's like she doesn't. She feels like she's being compassionate.
Yes.
So not.
She's just so out of touch with like how to be that person anymore. Like,
I think like for me at least, that scene was so like it wasn't out of place in the sense that it didn't belong, but it just came out of nowhere, which only added to the comedy of it.
Yeah.
And then it ends, and then it goes back to what Jack Black's doing.
Yeah.
Anyway, Carol.
Yeah, so about that scene, I wasn't able to pay attention to what Joan was saying because the friends I was watching it with were very eagle-eyed. And you know how in the classroom they had that poster with like demerits and stars for if they're being good or bad? There was one person who was just named Emily, although now we know there was no one in the class named Emily, at least no one in the band that he ever names by name. But Emily had 6 demerits. She was obviously a very bad kid. And right after that scene, you flash forward to her yelling at a girl named Emily in the office. I just needed to point that out. But obviously that little girl wasn't in the same class because she was so much younger. So I don't know if maybe like one of the people in the crew had like a daughter named Emily, or it was a joke. But we were just very focused on who Emily was. And then it was maybe a coincidence, but I mean, I doubt it, that then she was yelling at this girl named Emily who coincidentally... someone named Emily had the most demerits. So just a fun fact in case anyone... Yeah, just...
That's cool. Nice little Easter egg.
Yeah.
I wonder if, like, there was, like, let's say at one point in the script there was a girl named Emily, like, in the class.
Yeah.
And, like, they ended up cutting that out, but they just left that scene of Emily being yelled at, and they just, like, did that as its own thing in the movie. That kind of seems like maybe it was left over from something, but it was just so funny that they were like, fuck it. Like, it's hilarious. Let's just leave it in here. What are some other, like, we gotta highlight some of the just incredible shit. Okay, I got another one that I want to say that's really funny. That makes me laugh. And we can maybe talk about the PG-13 element of this, like,
okay.
Now, leading into it. But it's when his band breaks up with him at the beginning of the movie.
Yes.
And, like, there's the band, like, the head of the band or whatever. But then there's, like, that other guy who's acting, like, really sad. That like Jack Black is getting kicked out, and he's like, sorry, man, like, I didn't do this. And then the band leader's like, shut up, man, like, you voted for him to be out too. And, like, that guy makes me laugh really hard because I don't know if he's supposed to be genuine or if he's just, like, an uber asshole. Like, does he actually feel bad? That whole thing is just hilarious. But then also you get the iconic Jack Black read between the lines moment.
That's what I was going to bring up.
Oh, yeah.
Just infested my grade school and just life as we knew it as children.
Yeah, there was that, and then I think he was, when they got caught with a guitar in the classroom and he had to show how he teaches them, and he played a song, and it was like, get off your ass, let's do some math, was the rhyme.
Yeah.
Can we also just briefly talk about the parent-teacher night?
Oh my God.
Because I love when he's like talking about what he's teaching the kids, and he's like, oh, you know, math, science, geography, math, and he's just like going through all the basic like the basic subjects.
Oh my God.
But also, like, I know it's a comedy, but realistically, do you think as like a 10-year-old kid you would notice if you had a substitute this insane and unqualified? Like, I know at the beginning they're kind of like, what about math and science? Like, we can't do recess all the time. But then as soon as he was like, we're just going to prepare for this battle of the bands for 3 full weeks. By the way, it was only 3 weeks that they supposedly learned all of this music, which I don't believe.
Oh, are you serious? I always thought this movie took place over, like, months.
No, at one point they say 3 weeks. which like doesn't entirely track, because initially he was like, it's next term, the battle, but we're preparing a term earlier, which is why we can't tell anyone. So you'd think it would be a longer time frame, but they definitely do say they'd been practicing for 3 weeks or something at some point. I noted it down.
Interesting.
But yeah, I just find it
Well,
surprising
it still kind of makes sense
that they didn't like question like how we could not do math or science for 3 full weeks.
I mean, I can see my class at that age not really care. Like, I didn't even care about science at that age, and like it's something I care a lot about now. But I can. Sorry, what?
I was just gonna say, like, the weirder thing to me, like, I feel like, yeah, being that age, like, you wouldn't really care, but I feel like these parents that are paying for their kids to be in prep school, like, you'd notice if your kid wasn't doing any fucking math homework for 3 weeks. Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like that would have happened earlier than parent-teacher, but, like, whatever. It is what it is. You just gotta buy into it that they don't know, but yeah, I mean, it doesn't really track like that. There's no way the parents wouldn't have found out. At least one of the parents wouldn't have found out.
Yeah. Did you guys know what factotum meant? Random question.
No.
Because I remember Summer was like,
didn't.
I'm the class factotum. And I never knew. And for some reason, I never thought to look it up until literally recording this podcast. But in case anyone wanted to know, it means either a person having many diverse activities or responsibilities, or a general servant. Just FYI for the future. Just thought that would be fun to know. That was more a fun fact for you guys, but...
So, which one of us is the factotum? For us, then.
I feel like in general, I'm like kind of a Summer, so I can take the factotum position.
That is a really Summer thing to do.
Yeah, I was
just
very
take
much
the
that like nerd in grade school, so I'll take it.
Right.
Even high school, let's not lie.
True. Except for that time I got a better grade than you on that math test, remember?
Our origin story.
Our origin story. One day we'll have to tell our origin stories of friendship. They're very quick, but they're very interesting.
We'll have like a bonus pod where we just talk about how we met.
Yeah.
Can we talk about the finale now?
Yes. Let's do it.
Because that's 100% the most like it's the most electrifying part of the entire movie, and it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
It is though. It is like.
It really is. I think I got more than I expected to out of that little kid's like storyline about having to make up the light show on a whim.
Yeah.
Because it felt so like satisfying when it went like because everything was falling into place.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like the parents coming into the show and realizing how talented all their kids are. Like it felt good.
But even like the one issue I have with the final scene is that we're supposed to believe that they all show up, no makeup, no hair, regular uniform. And in the span of one song by the competition, they have all changed and done hair and makeup, especially the keyboardist with his crazy spikes. That is one pet peeve. But otherwise, perfect performance. Everyone's costumes and moves and everything was flawless. But there's no way it was done in that amount of time.
That's a fair point, but it also, like, I wanted to say, like, how much I loved how clearly each of the band members were dressing as, like, someone they were learning about or someone that was inspiring them because of, like, the music homework that Dewey gave them to study. Yes. Like, the guitarist being, like, kind of dressed like Slash.
Yeah.
And then, like, you know, the piano kid, I can't remember his name, but,
Lawrence.
Like he was given, right, Larry as he calls him.
Larry.
And he was given a Yes CD, which I really appreciated. Was not expecting a Yes reference.
Yeah.
Even in this movie, so he clearly like took huge inspiration from that. Just like, I love the little stuff like that. Like, and then there's that one shot of in the classroom when he's teaching like rock history, and there's this huge web sort of timeline of all these rock influences, and like you can pause the movie and take a little look at all of the bands that are referenced there. It's nice.
Yeah, going back to like those little detail stuff, something that always gets me I like after the first time I noticed it. I don't remember when the first time I noticed it is, but like the first time they perform Zach's song like in the classroom setting, they get to the part where like Dewey wants to have his guitar solo, and like he sings out the guitar solo.
Yeah.
And then he's like, yeah, like, I'm totally gonna do this, and you can have one later, but right now I just need to do this. And then when you actually get to the performance at the end, it's legitimately what he was singing as his guitar solo. Like, it's the same, like, melody. And it's, like, it's so funny to me, because they didn't have to be... Because I'm fucking sure Jack Black was just, like, doing stupid shit, like, when they were filming that classroom scene. Unless they filmed the ending of the movie first, which is possible, I guess, depending on how they scheduled it. But, like, it's just funny to me that they actually took time to make sure that ties in and, like, make it be legitimately what he ends up doing.
Yeah, and then he even says, Zach, you can take a solo later, and he does.
Yeah.
And then there's even a piano solo, and it's like everyone gets their little moment to shine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's very rewarding that they did that, though, because I think, like, even now, every time it gets to that scene, like, even I'm able to sing, like, his guitar solo the way he sings it. So if they did change it up at the end, like, you'd know, just because what he sang was so catchy, and, like, you are singing it. If he played anything else, the audience would have been like, when did he change it? Especially now that we know it took place in 3 weeks. Like, come on.
Also, like, this is about to get very geeky storytelling, and then we can just go back into like fun movie stuff. But like something else I really appreciated this time around, like I mean, obviously, like there's the parallel. The movie starts with the concert and ends with the concert. That is very a very clear parallel and like storytelling thing. But what's like really interesting is like at the start of the movie, like it really cements Jack Black's arc, because at the start of the movie he is like very selfish during the concert. Like he is trying to get on the lead singer's mic, he's cranking up his own amp, and like he's doing all this kind of nonsense on stage to have attention. Whereas when you get to like the concert at the end of the movie, like it's all the kids that get an opportunity to shine, and like you fully believe by this point in the movie that like he just wants all the kids to get their chance, and he's kind of accepted like this probably isn't ever gonna happen for me, but like because of that then he gets to finally have his like stage dive moment or whatever. And it's just, it's not done like explicitly, like no one says like you have to care about the kids more than yourself, Jack Black. It's just it's just done like through action. Like he's a dick during the first concert, and then during the second concert like all the kids are like the stars, you know, like they all get an opportunity to shine over him at one point in the song, which is like, it's just well done, and it just made me happy. I was like, oh, that's very good, that's very satisfying, that feels right. Doesn't feel weird. Doesn't feel like Gollum biting Frodo's ring, and that's the reason why Lord of the Rings ends. You know what I mean? It's just like, cool. We've come to the end of this, and it's very satisfying. And I see the choices Jack Black is making, and I get it.
Have we referenced Lord of the Rings in every episode since number 1?
No,
I don't think we referenced it in Mother.
In Mother,
I don't know.
Just checking.
I was too drunk.
But yeah, it's not explicit like you're saying, which is always great.
Yeah.
It gives your audience like it lets your audience know that you have faith in them to figure it out, and you just sort of see it with the progression of his relationship with the whole class. Like he genuinely cares about them, and he cares about like rock and roll and like passion, and just like they don't win the competition, but it doesn't matter because they're proud of the show that they put on. Which, I mean, maybe if I was like when I was at that age, sure, that would have been disappointing that you didn't get first place, but like something I've learned since that age is it's much more, it feels so much better to, for example, put on a show that you're proud of rather than put on a show that earns you a really good reputation, you know?
Yes.
It's the passion over the reward, which is the biggest takeaway I got from
Love a movie with a life lesson.
Yes, exactly. Well, and the other thing I was going to say too is, like, obviously this isn't the first movie where there's a competition and then the person you're rooting for loses the competition, but like they gain something more important. Like that's like a storytelling trope. But I think it, like, this might be my favorite example of it ever, because of the setting of it being a concert and because of the fact that you get to have the moment of like the crowd wants them to come back on stage for the encore type thing, and it helps cement that theme home in like a really nice way, and it really fits in the world. Whereas like, this is gonna be a really weird out of my ass reference, but in the movie Cars, in Cars 1, like, by the way, Cars 1, not a bad movie. The Cars movies get a bad rap. I'm telling you, they're not as bad as fucking Pixar fanatics say. They're actually, especially the first one, is like pretty decent.
Well, I mean, the thing is, they're Pixar movies, so like,
yeah,
they're on the lower end for Pixar movies, but they're not like
exactly.
They're not horrible. Yeah.
But like Cars 1 ends with like Lightning McQueen like loses the race. You know what I mean? Like, he intentionally loses the race. The asshole guy wins because like some things are more important. And like, I get it. It's like a nice message for kids. But something about the way it's done here and having the framing of it be a concert and having them still get to come on for the encore and have it be like, you guys put on the show that you guys put on, like, to go back to the whole idea of sincerity, like, you guys put on the most sincere show. Mm-hmm. You guys put on the show that you wanted to put on, whereas the guys that won, and it's funny, like, when they come in and that song starts playing, like, I always think, this sounds exactly like every early 2000s song. Like, I'm surprised this isn't a real early 2000s song. But I think that's kind of the point. It's like, they just made a song that sounds like a song that would be out during that time. And so, like, yeah, they win, but, like, ultimately, what people really respond to is sincerity. Like, to quote...
artistic integrity.
Yes, to quote La La Land.
I do love
people
that film.
will... It's a great movie. The movie that's another movie that gets a bad rap. Everyone, like, loved it, and then they were like, actually, it's not good.
I think that's because it was overhyped. I genuinely think that if people went into it without the expectations that were given to it, they would have enjoyed it. Because I saw it with no reviews and only seeing, like, one trailer ever, and I fell in love immediately.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, so I think that's people's downfall. It's great.
Yeah, but, like, no worries, but, like, when, like, Seb and, I forget what her character's name is. Emma Stone's character. I forget what her name is. When they're talking, like, after Sebastian has taken his gig working for John Legend, which one day we'll do La La Land, but,
yes.
and he's becoming very commercial or whatever, and he's like, well, no one's gonna fucking listen to me if I open a jazz bar and play jazz. And she's like, well, they will, because, like, it's important to you, and you're passionate about it, and that's what people respond to. And the ending of this, like, really hits that home, and it's one of my favorite, like, third act endings ever, because it's so, like, it could not have happened any other way. It's so perfect in its execution that it's, like, just A+.
Yeah, and I'm glad they didn't. Like I said before, I think I mentioned before, like, I forgot, and I thought something changed at the end and they won first place. Like, after they didn't win, they were given first place, and I'm glad it didn't go that way, because that would have been really cheesy. I'm glad they kept it with them not winning and accepting that the fact that they put on an amazing show was enough for them, and they got the encore as a reward.
Yep.
Well, but even, like, Jack Black initially didn't accept it, and the students had to remind him, like, of what an accomplishment it was. Because initially he's like, oh, it sucks, we didn't win. But they were like, but we did a great job. Like, isn't that the point? So there was still,
and that was the
like,
payoff of him.
still the teaching moment for him.
Yeah, it was the payoff of him changing their lives so that in that moment they were able to, like, reciprocate with him.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do we have any other... I know we're going to do something fun, which is find out what all the kids are up to now. But,
yeah.
Do any other shout-outs we want to give in terms of just, like, funny shit or shit that you, like, forgot about?
I have one that's not about this movie. It was Sebastian and Mia in La La Land. I don't want people yelling at their phones later. Yes.
That's right. Yeah.
But I actually do have some notes, because I took, obviously, a lot of notes, as I do. That's my thing. I just want to say, private school for $15,000 a year is insane. That's what I paid for university. So, like, all these kids are so rich. Another fun tie-in. Summer, when she wanted to initially be a singer, sang a song from Cats.
Yep.
Which I think...
Oh, yeah. I was like, where have I heard that movie, or that song before? Yeah,
I watched it with the group of friends that I watched Cats with, like the newest version, the fantastic new version.
The newest abomination.
It's a fun film to watch.
One day we'll do that.
So I just wanted to point out that link. another fun point is that when Freddie, for some reason, when Freddie, like the drummer, started giving off all the attitude he gave me Edward Cullen vibes. Just like with the stare he gives to camera. Just a fun tie-in for, a future episode, wink wink. But yeah, I think those are my main fun ones. But yeah.
Dan, you got anything you want to highlight?
I just want to say, like, we've already talked about it, but I really want to highlight how, like, convincing Joan Cusack's performance was. Like, her little, like, she kept, like, doing this thing with her glasses where she would, like, really, like, geekily fix them, and it's just a really small thing, but it's this little, like, repeating action that she does that really made her feel like she, like, embedded herself into the character.
Right.
It's so minor, like, but it's just little, like, isms like that, which also connect to all of Jack Black's isms that we've mentioned, and it's like character supporting details,
Yeah, for sure.
It's a character trait that doesn't add anything to her character, but it's very immersive, I guess is the word I'm looking for.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's just an example of, like, why she did such a great job.
I think I have just a couple moments I want to shout out. Funny stuff. One is when Joan Cusack comes in to say that it's parent-teacher night and Jack Black is getting coffee, and then he, like, spills coffee on himself. It's such a small thing, and I don't know why it's in the movie, but he goes like, oh, and he, like, freaks out and starts jumping around, and, like, everyone just stops and is like, what the fuck? And he's like, sorry, and it's such a small and funny thing. Oh, you know the other one that gets me, actually? This might be one of my favorite, like, things that made me laugh, like, as an adult. Because as a kid, I was like, yeah, they're students, they're, like, at a prestigious school, they'd be learning advanced stuff. But, like, as an adult who's gone through, like, university physics, when she walks by and he goes, okay, and therefore E equals MC squared. And it's just, like, as if that's totally fucking normal that he would be teaching these 12-year-olds that. It really made me laugh hard. And, like, she never questioned. She's just like, oh yeah, okay, you're teaching. And it's so stupid.
That reminded me of, I think it's the same scene where she's like, so I guess you wouldn't mind if I sit in this afternoon on your class just to see what's going on. And he's like, sure, feel free to come back this afternoon and I would love to accommodate that. And she's like, it is the afternoon I meant right now. Because it's something like his character, of course he wouldn't be attuned to, like, regular daily schedule because he's someone who, like, sleeps in a lot.
Yeah.
Which is clear at the beginning of the movie.
He just has no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I found 2 more things in my notes. One was when they went to the auditions for the Battle of the Bands, and then they came up with the idea that everyone, like, they were going to be sick to get them to the final round. And then one of the guys who was judging the auditions goes, oh, what are they sick with? And he comes up with stick it to demoniosis.
Yes.
As if any sane human wouldn't see through that. Like, as bad as it is, he couldn't have just said, like, cancer or something. Like, he had to make up something so blatantly obvious and fake. And another one that could technically be considered offensive, but just, like, I never actually paid attention to before, is, I think, also when Joan Cusack's character walks by and was like, oh, like, Miss Lemon's, like, heard music coming from this room. Like, what's going on? What are you doing? And he goes, oh, Miss Lemon's must be on crack, right, kids?
That one?
I didn't find that offensive.
And she doesn't even reprimand him for saying that to them or question it at all.
I totally forgot about that line, and he, straight face, is just like, uh-oh, Miss Lemons must be on crack again, kids. And I fucking, like, I died laughing. I was like, what the hell? How did that, like, it's so good. Yeah, so just a couple other things that I wanted to point out. First of all, after they, like, end up, like, signing on to do the gig or whatever, it is the first use of the Immigrant Song in, like, a cool way. And, like, watching it this time, I was like, because when Thor happened, like, when I saw Thor Ragnarok, I was like, haha, that's funny, because, like, School of Rock does it. But then watching it this time, I was like, haha, that's funny, like, that's the Thor Ragnarok thing. So it's so, because the other really funny thing is that Led Zeppelin hates letting people have rights to songs in their movies.
Oh.
So this was like one of the first times ever, period, that they got like a movie had the rights to play their song. So it's so funny to me that in this list is School of Rock and Thor Ragnarok. It's like, yeah, those two movies, totally cool to use the Immigrant Song. One other funny line. This is another like low-key thing that I love. Okay, and we were talking about the actual Ned Schneebly here.
Yes.
The dorky roommate. When Jack Black is trying to recruit him to be a part of the band, and he goes, Dewey, I'm not a satanic sex god anymore. I'm a working stiff, and that's cool. And I've never like felt something more in my core as just like it just hurt so much. Like I was like, oh my god, that is like the most cringe-inducing thing ever.
Well, even when they show a picture of like their time in the band together, it looked like they were like dressed like vampires. I don't know if that was on purpose or they just thought it looked cool.
Wasn't it like their name had something to do with blood? Like it literally was like a vampire thing on purpose.
It was maggot death.
Yeah, I think maybe it was maggot death.
Oh god.
Yeah, blood sucking something from maggot death. That's what he says. Anyway.
Should we get into the special segment now? That
yes. Where are they now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I figured because as heartwarming as this film is, it is probably on the lower end of us analyzing it. Like every other thing we've talked about so far has been like, what does this mean? Why did they choose this? And we can't really do that with this film. So I was just curious because, I mean, I've kind of alluded to it now, but there were obviously so many kids in this film, and they were all so brilliant in their roles that I was like, why haven't I seen them in anything? And so I just Googled what they're doing now, which, to sum it up, is not much other than Miranda Cosgrove, if I'm being perfectly honest.
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously Miranda Cosgrove played Summer, and so she, like we mentioned before, was in Smallville first, and then this, and then from, I think, this, got hired to Drake and Josh, and then iCarly. So obviously she's making money and fine and music and stuff. But I think my favorite is Zach, who was the guitarist. I don't actually know if this is true, but apparently he was arrested like 3 or 4 times for stealing guitars. Because now, this was his only acting role, but like since then he started to like play guitar because he was actually cast for this film because someone just saw him playing guitar once and they're like, okay, we need a kid who can play music. So then after he just made music, and yeah, recently was faced felony charges for stealing guitars in Florida, and there's video footage.
He's taking his character arc a bit too far, but
he's sticking it to the man, guys. I think really.
Yeah.
He's making us all proud.
He's living out the message of the movie.
Yeah.
I mean, can you blame the guy?
Initially, I thought I made it up because, like, upon initial Google, like, even the article where I got most of this information from about, like, where everyone is now, they didn't bring it up. So I was like, oh, okay, like, maybe I, like, dreamt it, or it was, like, a fake article going around, and, like, that's why. But then I did a separate Google specifically about that, and, like, apparently it's true. So that's fun. But yeah, everyone else just kind of, like, played music and went to school. Another like fun thing to mention is that Lawrence, the keyboardist, after this was in a dance crew called Instant Noodle Crew.
Oh my god.
Nice.
So that was fun. But then he went to Dartmouth, so he seems to be doing fine.
Good for him.
Like in Canada?
No, I think you're thinking of Dalhousie. Dartmouth College is in, giving a quick Google, Hanover, New Hampshire, United States.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant like the city in Eastern Canada.
He went to Dartmouth, one of the Ivy League schools, so he's a smart kid.
Good for him.
Yeah, but everyone else, like, either the story was this was their first and only acting role, and now they're completely out of the spotlight. A couple of them kind of tried to make music after. Billy, the designer, like does a bunch of, he studied like theater, so now he does a bunch of like live musicals and acting. Alicia, who was one of the vocalists, she was in, I don't know if you remember these films, Are We There Yet and Are We Done Yet with Ice Cube.
Yeah.
I do remember those films.
So I think she's probably like easily the second most famous of all the kids. But yeah, I was kind of surprised at how uninterested it seems like they were in pursuing things, because at most, like...
Well, I find that funny. I think it's
Yeah.
really funny that, like, for most of them, it was like after this movie, they just went back to their...
Right?
to continue with their lives. Like, all right, that was fun. That's done now. I'm just gonna go finish school, I guess, or not even finish school, but like continue
Yeah.
school and have a lot of school in the future.
And like, if anything, they continued to pursue music and not acting. So it seems like, even if anything, in some of their cases, they probably just did this film because they got to play music. Which
Yeah.
is, I guess, also
That seems
helps
really
with the
likely.
role.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's cool that, like they clearly just casted kids that were talented musicians.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, obviously that's why that they just feel like school kids, because they are just school kids, so they act like that. But then also, to the child actors that are actually child actors, like the Alicia girl and also Miranda Cosgrove, I think it is to their credit that they really fit in well within the group, too. Because... they're not, and like they clearly have been going to acting, and this is like a big deal for them, but they still kind of pull it off on that level. Like they don't stand out as like, well, these are the actors and those are the regular kids. Like they all kind of feel like they could be friends and like in the same grade in real life. So
I also like that. I guess I should have mentioned this when we were going through, like, do we have any other moments that we want to talk about specifically in the movie? But I'll just mention it now. When Miranda Cosgrove, when Summer, I mean, like she does her singing audition in front of the class, and she's a horrible singer. I just find it really funny because I'm pretty sure, because like she sung the theme for iCarly, right? So she's actually a really good singer in real life.
She's put out, like, I think an
Is she
album also.
yeah.
Yeah, and okay, so she does music too on its own. I just found that really funny that they picked her to like not be one of the background vocalists.
Maybe she hadn't developed her voice yet. She was only 10.
Maybe.
So.
True.
Yeah, but also, did you know that afterwards, School of Rock was made into not only a Broadway musical, but also a television show on Nickelodeon?
I did
Because
know this.
I didn't until I went to research stuff.
I think I briefly heard about the show. I've never heard about the musical.
I've never seen or had any context for the musical. That one kind of bothers me less. Like I could see it being a musical, but
Yeah.
the show hurts because it's really bad. And like I have a brother who's 10 years younger, so like it was on Nickelodeon when he was in the Nickelodeon watching phase, and I just wouldn't let him watch it. I was like, you can't. This is an abomination. You can't watch this. This
What
is
a good brother.
so because it's like. It's what this movie... It is what exactly what we've been saying this whole time. It's what this movie would be if it was made now, which is really fucking bad and,
Yeah.
like, simplistic and thinking that kids won't...
Derivative.
Yeah, like, thinking kids can't get the humor. And I think it's, like, we all watched this movie as kids. We all, even if we didn't get all the humor, like, understood the humor for the most part throughout the movie. And it only gets better with age, so... It's just that's a no-no from me. Nickelodeon, you suck.
It's okay, it's canceled now.
Good. Nickelodeon,
good.
good for you.
Okay, also, one other fun fact I found in my research, that this film was the highest grossing music-themed comedy of all time, until it was overtaken in 2015 by...
Can I guess?
Yeah.
Pop Star Never Stop Popping?
Oh my god, no, I wish.
Oh, okay.
Any other guesses?
I think you mean Never Stop,
Never
Never
Stop
Stop.
Oh, did I say Never Stop Popping?
Yeah.
Actually, I think that's a funnier title. Anyway, I don't... wait, 2015?
2015. If you didn't say 2015, I would have definitely guessed Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah,
that
me
was
too.
like 2010, I think,
Yeah.
though. I have no idea.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Well, it's a sequel to a film that I probably would have guessed it was. It was Pitch Perfect 2. Not 1, 2. Even though 1 was significantly better, and I'm a little
True.
sad. But
True.
yeah, so it was Pitch Perfect 2, of all things. So it held the throne for like 13 years, or 12 years, which is very impressive.
It's not bad.
It deserves it.
Not bad at
It
all.
really does. But I mean, yeah, if anything, I would have thought Pitch Perfect took it, but
Yeah.
I guess people just didn't know at the time. But yeah, was there anything else you wanted to touch on?
If for some reason you've never seen this movie, anyone who's listening, it's unlikely, but it's possible. Definitely, I think we'd all 100% recommend checking this movie out because it's better with age, I think.
Yes, I would definitely second that, and I was going to say the exact same thing, which is if you missed it as a kid and you're afraid that people's love for it is nostalgia, it's not.
Yeah.
You can watch this for the first time as an adult and fully love it just as much. And also, I was just so surprised. I watch a lot of content, like TV shows, movies, whatever, but this is the first piece of content I've watched in a long time, besides a really great episode of Star Trek. But those are few and far between. There's a lot of good Star Trek, but great Star Trek is kind of few and far between. But it has the same property, which is it completely changed my mood in a positive way when I was done. I watched this, it's the middle of the work week, it was a long day, and I was like, fuck, gotta watch this movie for a fucking podcast. So I watched it, and immediately was just happy and great, and yeah, it's such a great movie. I cannot recommend it enough.
For me, it got me really enthusiastic with for music.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It made me wish that I'd studied music theory professionally. It makes me want to know more about music and the music industry, and that's not even that's not specifically the theme of or the message of the movie. It is the theme of the movie, but that was one of my biggest takeaways from it.
Yeah, you also get a great lesson into sticking it to the man and general anarchy, both things that I'm a big fan of. Just you want to stop conforming to societal norms and expectations. This is a good place to start. After that, contact
and
me.
it does
I
it
can
in a
link you
cute
to
way.
some books. But
Yeah. Yep.
If the kids can get it, you can get it.
The movie's got a little bit of everything for everyone. It really doesn't matter.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, to Dan's point, watching this, it made me miss, it legitimately made me miss concert band from high school. And just, being musically involved in some sense. And then also, it made me feel so validated in my taste in music because no one has my taste in music. And I know that, he's an asshole, but just watching this and, seeing them talk exclusively about bands that, I would listen to or, that kind of stuff was just great because I'm surrounded by people that love indie rock because that's what people love now. And
At me next time.
Yes. And, well, you and also my girlfriend and also
we listen
everyone.
To the same music, yes.
That's that because that's what people listen to now. But, that's what people with good taste listen to now. I listen to stuff from the year 2000 to 2003.
Still
and,
not in bad taste.
The 80s.
Yeah.
So this was very fun. It was a trip down memory lane to the early 2000s, and I very much enjoyed it.
Okay, so next ep, guys, are we gonna tell them what they're in for? I'm so excited.
I'm so excited too. You have no idea. Dan, this is payback for Mother, my guy.
Truly.
This is what you get.
Except 5 times the length.
Yeah, it's 5 times the length, but okay.
But it will go by quicker. I'm telling you, it'll go by quicker.
Honestly, I agree.
Okay.
So,
well, let's reveal what it is.
Guys, let me take you on a journey here. I'm going to take our listeners on a journey, which is I am a big fan of fantasy franchises. But there was one particularly famous from our childhood, I would say. We're all 23 years old, or just about 23. Actually, I think I'm the only one who's not 23, so fuck me. I will be 23 in November. But this is beyond the point. The point is, there was a franchise that we all... that I missed. And that franchise has to do with sparkling vampires who would later go on to play Batman. And Taylor Lautner, who people loved as children, but I am sure you will all find upon rewatch is a unconscionable asshole in these movies. It also has to do with, I think, probably the first DILF in film. Actually, there's 2 DILFs in this movie.
Are you talking about her dad?
Her dad, but also his dad.
Okay, yeah, that one makes more sense.
Yeah.
We'll get there.
Who plays
Next
them?
And
Who plays them?
and also just like some of the worst acting performances you've ever seen, but also just some really funny stuff. It's just, guys, we're doing Twilight. We're doing the Twilight Saga just in time for fall. I'm so excited. I've just seen them for the first time. Dan has never seen them. He's going to watch them. I am hyped to talk about these movies. Dan, I'm going to leave you with this. I'm going to leave our listeners with this. There is a scene, and I don't remember which movie it's from because they all bleed together now. There is a scene where they cut to Robert Pattinson in the scene, and they used footage from a take when I am 99.9% sure he didn't think he was being filmed and was not giving a reaction in character. They cut to him, and he just looks like he's standing there not giving a shit in the middle of this scene. I don't think they knew he was filming him. And, like, that's what this is. It's just, it's overacting mixed with people not knowing they're on camera, mixed with, like, some interesting ideas, mixed with a bunch of... There's something that happens in the last two movies with Jacob that... I had to pause the movie and just yell. I was like, how is this accepted in the main... Anyway, we'll get to it. I'm so excited. I'm so excited.
But for Dan's information and maybe the audience, the two DILFs in question are played by Billy Burke, who plays Charlie Swan, Bella's father, and Peter Facinelli, I don't know if that's how you say it, I'm not Italian, I'm so sorry, who plays Dr. Carlisle Cullen, the father of Edward. So, look forward to that, Dan.
Okay. I was expecting two names that I'd recognize, but...
Nope. Not at all. But yeah, it should be a great time.
Well, thanks for that.
No problem.
I'll be thanking you even more next episode.
Oh, I guarantee you will. It'll be probably a mother-level conversation.
Oh my god, I can't wait.
Oh yeah,
Get ready, audience.
I wanted to mention too, we should mention we chose this for the topic of this episode as sort of like palate cleanser is the wrong term, but something along those lines where we wanted like a lighter...
Shorter.
We kind of mentioned this last episode. Yeah. Also shorter episode just to talk about something that we genuinely enjoy after... all of the ranting that took place last episode.
Yeah.
We felt this was very necessary and it was nice, so...
Yeah, lighthearted. But strap in for next time, because it will be the exact opposite.
Oh boy.
Dan and I will have had to rewatch 5 movies in just about a week, so get ready.
Well, and I'll also point out, obviously, as fans of the show will know, we operate on a 2-week schedule. We may or may not push it the next episode by an extra week just to give obviously our own podcast but also listeners time to actually rewatch, because 5 movies is a lot of movies. So if you don't hear from us in 2 weeks exactly, please don't fret. We will be back probably the week after that, like I said, just to give everyone time to watch. So
and school's starting back up now.
School's starting back up, a lot of people going back to work, so yeah,
we're gonna try our best to keep the schedule, but
this is still a hobby for us, so things that we're getting paid for or are paying for or are being graded on will probably take priority. No offense, but just don't be mad at us. I don't think anyone has like in their calendars every other Thursday feature length podcast.
I mean, this is we're really speaking hopefully.
You know, just like push it by a week. Don't freak out.
I firmly believe everyone who's ever listened to anything we've done has just seen it popped up and gone, oh yeah,
probably,
and then listened to it, which would be nice. I firmly believe that.
Well, I have it in my calendar, so I'll be pushing it back a week. There's that at least.
Okay.
Yeah, and I second that.
Okay, but thanks for listening, guys. Hope you enjoyed this more lighthearted episode. If you were watching School of Rock for the first time before this or after this, hope you enjoyed or will enjoy, because it truly is a treat.
Yeah, and thank you, as usual, for all of the support that we've gotten. Very much appreciate it. And I guess until next time, you'll be hearing from us, I guess.
Catch you on the flip side.